How's it going, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Armchair Analysis. Hope you guys are having a fantastic Saturday morning. It's early upload. We got a double upload coming today. Cincinnati coming later today, but for right now, it is all about the Wake Forest Demon Deacons and what an exciting team to be pulling out today, man. I'm excited for this. Looking forward to talking a little bit about Wake Forest, what they are bringing into this 2026 season, all the improvements, and really the shattering of expectations in year number one under Jake Dickert. Can they take steps forward, even beyond what they were last year, and maybe be an ACC championship contender in 2026? We'll talk a little bit about that and everything you should expect here in this 2026 season for the Deeks. Just want to say, if you're new around here, leave a like, subscribe, comment down below, follow us on social media, check us out on Discord, and of course on Spotify, where we upload every single episode as well. The Wake Forest Demon Deacons last year, 9-4, 4-4 in ACC play, closed the year out with a big time win in the Duke's Mayo Bowl over Mississippi State. It was a 43-29 victory, and one that I think built a lot of confidence into the 2026 year. Now, this is a team that did lose quite a bit in the portal, and really a lot of players that kind of surprised us, I think, when you started to hear the names of guys that would ultimately walk out of this program. You would see Micah Mays go step in a different direction. Tate Carney really surprised me a lot to see him kind of be one of those guys that was able to walk out. You saw a handful on the offensive line go their separate ways as well. And it opens up a lot of opportunity for guys in a next man up mentality, but it also brought in quite a few transfers as well that I think can make a big impact on this 2026 season, and specifically in the wide receiver room, where it is pretty much everybody you're going to see as a productive member of that receiver room comes in from a different school. So it's going to be exciting to watch how all of that change might take effect and take place, and really how quickly these guys can get things together, because this is a team. Again, you talk about it, 9-4. I mean, look, I predicted this team to go 6-6 last year, and I thought I was crazy for being this high on this team. But I knew what Jake Dickert's track record was. I knew what this team had in front of them. What we didn't trust was the quarterback position. And I'm going to tell you right now that this year, with Gio Lopez coming in and having the experience working with Rob Ezell as offensive coordinator back when he was at South Alabama and had his best year of his career to this point, returning to Winston-Salem, returning to this system, there's a lot of reason to be excited and think that maybe this team is, in this quarterback position, actually upgraded versus what Robbie Ashford was last year. And that's no offense, because Ashford played fantastic a lot of times last year. But to me, what we've seen out of Gio Lopez so far early throughout spring looked solid. And I think he's going to be kind of pushed to be better based on what Steel Pizzello was. There's a lot of room to believe and reason to believe that this might be a really good year, and maybe even push as a career year for Gio Lopez. You look at this team returning 53% of production from last season, which is 67th around college football. The seniors on this team, we have 18 of them, 21 juniors, 25 sophomores, and 39 freshmen. It is a young team, and I don't really want to use that as inexperienced team, though. There's a lot of really key pieces that have a significant amount of playing time throughout the entirety of this roster, and between the offense and the defense, I think there's a lot of pieces that we can talk about and really create a lot of excitement for what this team might be able to do. You look at what they were last year, and on top of being 9-4, on top of again kind of surprising people, this was a team that the stats really back up just what they were able to do, and specifically the defense. Scotty Hazelton did a great job turning this defense around from what they were just a couple of years ago, where they really couldn't stop anything, to a defense that is not only respectable, but one of the better ones in the ACC all around. I mean, this was a very, very quality defense last year. And Hazelton returns, and some of the best players from this team last year return as well. You're talking about Langston Hardy, who's going to be, I think, a game wrecker. Look, he broke out big time last year. 17 tackles for loss, 7 sacks on 67 tackles. I think you're going to have him paired up with Gabe Kursky, and then even Langston Hardy's younger brother, Camden Hardy, who didn't play much last year, but will have a significant impact this year, as he's going to be the second or the right-hand man to Langston Hardy at that rush position. you're going to see this defense, I think, take steps further forward. And we'll talk a little more about it when we get into the lineup portion of this video. But you look at what they were defensively, and inside the top 30 in both yards per game allowed and rush yards per game allowed, just inside the top 50 in pass yards per game allowed, and inside the top 50 in points per game allowed. This was a solid defense last year. And again, a surprising step forward under Scotty Hazelton, and again, just based on what it was 2 years ago. I mean, if you watch the two teams, you would understand like the turnaround really doesn't go into words. It was just very surprising to see how much different this team looked and how much more competent they looked on that side of the ball. You pair that up with the fact that the offense was really solid and again took steps beyond what we expected, thanks to Robbie Ashford and playing really well last year for the most part. 28 points per game last year, 64th, and really just inside the top 70 in every category offensively. And you can expect, again, that those will take steps forward just simply for the fact that I think the quarterback position improves. And there's some other pieces of this offense that I'm excited to talk about as we get into it. Penalties were a big killer last year, especially at times in some of the bigger games. The Georgia Tech game comes to mind, where it just felt like this was a team that they really kind of beat themselves down the stretch of that game. Should have won the game and just couldn't quite get it done. I feel like if they can cut those down, bring that down to maybe 6.5 or even down to 6 penalties per game, you're taking a huge chunk out of really the deficit that you may face in games against like Miami, for example, which is a big one that happens early in the year. Just adding discipline to this program, which I think they've done a great job of so far, should take the steps forward necessary for this team to be a legitimate contender. Taking a look at the offense here, again, offensive coordinator Rob Ezell, but co-offensive coordinator Dan Enos, who's also the quarterback coach, looks to be taking the right steps. Again, Gio Lopez looked good, but I'm confident in this quarterback position one way or the other. Steele Pizzella came out in the spring game and just looked the part of a starting quarterback and looked the part of a guy who I thought could be able to push for the starting quarterback job. Now, obviously, Gio Lopez is very experienced and has all the talent in the world. And if he can take anything out of what he did last year, just understand that in a way, I mean, that was the hardest year of his career. Understanding how to get back to just playing football, which he has even said at times throughout the course of spring, I'm just happy to be here. This is in essence a much better situation, and it's a lot better for me. I'm just having fun playing football again. I think that's a very important piece. Again, he's reunited with Rob Ezell, which I think takes even steps beyond and further to hopefully have a potentially career year. 2 years ago, he had 2,500 passing yards, 18 touchdowns, and 5 picks. Last year, 1,700 passing yards, 10 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. I think we're going to see a little bit more of the 2024 Gio Lopez going into this one. At running back, you got Ty Clark, but not only Ty Clark, KD Daniels comes in from Florida, and while he's been buried on that depth chart, specifically behind Jaden Baugh, I think KD Daniels can step in and probably be a really solid player. One other thing of note, Tate Carney still hasn't committed anywhere. Is it possible that Tate Carney could return to this roster as well and maybe make an impact at running back? That's to be determined. I'm not banking on that. I don't think that's really going to happen. But it is of note that he has not committed anywhere. Sawyer Seidel comes over from North Dakota, and he had close to 1,000 yards, actually just right under 900 yards rushing last year with 13 touchdowns. If any of these guys can break out and be the lead running back in this roster, which I think it's going to be Ty Clark, we'll see what's able to happen. There's not a Damon Claiborne type of player on this roster, so it's going to be interesting to watch how that kind of takes steps forward again and which running back really breaks out as the lead candidate to be RB1. At wide receiver, there's a lot of options, and I think all of them have their own upsides to them. Now, I'm very, very high on Carlos Hernandez. He's the leading receiver from last year and returns. He's the only receiver that we're going to talk about today that returns to this team from last year. Antonio Meeks comes in, had just under 200 yards receiving last year. Cam Shanks was just over 100 yards last year, but was really solid at UAB. I think he fits this offense better than what he was at Arkansas, so I would like to see him in the slot, which is where he'll play, and just kind of see how he can progress into this system. Um, you also have Wandame Davis, who comes in from UTEP. I think he's going to have an opportunity to maybe break out and be a potential playmaker for this offense. Another name that I'm looking for here is Chase Tyler. Comes over from Duke, and last year 120 receiving yards, as a matter of fact, on 4 catches, so 30 yards per reception. How quickly can he maybe get acclimated, and can he jump into the lineup? That's a question that I've been kind of having since the spring game, and I'm not very sure where that's going to go, or if he'll be the guy that can maybe break out. Again, I'm more looking at Wandame Davis to step in. But if Chase Tyler hits a year early, we're talking probably 5 or 6 receivers who can actually come in and play at any given time. And that doesn't include tight end Cameron Johnson, who was really solid last year. Landon Morris is a transfer in at tight end as well from Cal. I'm excited to see what he's able to do, especially in real game situations. We just haven't seen him do that yet. You look at the offensive line, Ethan Callaway is the most inexperienced player on the offensive line. 3 snaps last season. The grades were okay, but it's 3 snaps. I mean, are we going to really worry about grades when he just doesn't have the experience? I'm very curious how that's going to work with him as the left tackle, if that's where he ends up staying. At left guard, Clinton Richard, a guy that I'm kind of excited to see how he progresses into this year. Played a significant amount last year. I'd say over about 350 snaps. Can he take some steps forward? John, and I had it before we started this, Onegian comes in and 774 snaps. He's the most experienced player on this offensive line. Grades really well. Can he be the leader at center that this offensive line seems like they're going to need? I think that's the biggest weak point of this offense to this point, is just the experience on offensive line. Ryan Berger comes over from Oregon State. I think he has the potential to be probably the best offensive lineman on this team and also take a significant step forward from what he was last year. And then you got George C. coming in as well. 514 snaps last year, but grades poorly. And I'm curious to see if he can, again, another guy that can maybe step forward and be a significant piece to the offensive line. Or do they look elsewhere? Tolu Olajide comes in, and he's a guy who had 761 snaps last year playing for New Hampshire. Sorry, it took me a second to get there. So how much can he jump into the starting lineup with just the experience that he has starting at the Division I level? I don't know. I'm curious. Again, that's probably my biggest concern when I was looking through this entire roster and kind of going through my notes from spring game and everything else, was just that I'm just curious about this offensive line. I think there's a lot of room to improve based on what the spring game showed, but at the same time, a lot of these guys were facing Langston Hardy, or sorry, not Langston Hardy during that spring game, but they did throughout the course of spring. There were pieces, Camden Hardy amongst others, who were able to make some significant plays in the backfield, and I'm just curious again, where will that experience land when we get to actual time to play the games? Looking at this defense, which I'm probably most excited about, and I think they have potential to be a top 25 defense again, or really jump into that top 25 this year. Scotty Hazelton did a great job last year, and a lot of it comes from this front 7 or front 6 in the case of the 4-2-5 style that they like to run. Gabe Kershke and Langston Hardy off the edge were great last year. Kershke, we talked about Hardy already, 17 tackles for loss, 7 sacks. Kershke on the other side, 9 tackles for loss and 5 sacks. He was very solid as well. Over the middle, Zach Lohovichin, Dallas Afalava, both of those guys very solid as well, coming out of the middle. And now Afalava specifically, 3 sacks last year, 5.5 tackles for loss. But Lohovichin was just really solid over the middle, created some really solid opportunities himself, and created a lot of opportunities for the linebackers, which this year will be Frank Cusano and Aiden Hall. Aiden Hall last year, 73 tackles, 8 for loss, 3 PBUs. Cusano, 45 tackles, 1.5 for loss, and also had a half of a sack. Those two are going to be your number 1 and number 2 linebackers. As a matter of fact, when I talk about the defensive line, that's going to be the group you see the most. Now, Sadir Mitchell comes in from LSU. I'm very excited to see what he'll be able to do. He did not play last year. So just interested to see what he'll look like and where he falls into that order. And then along with Matt Herron, who comes over from Weber State, he's going to be the number 4 defensive tackle for this defensive line. When you look at the rush position, it's Langston Hardy and Camden Hardy, and there will likely not be anybody else barring injury. When you look at the linebacker room, again, Frank Casano, Aiden Hall, those are probably 1 and 2. Here are some guys that I'm curious about. Tylen McNichols comes in. Boom Jock comes over, which is an all-name list for 2026. And then Vincent Ferenzi, who I think I'm most excited about. And as a matter of fact, I think Vincent Ferenzi, if there's somebody who can break in and take over one of those linebacker positions, it's going to be Ferenzi. A lot of people don't know about him. He comes from Dayton, which is not the most known FCS school when it comes to college football. 85 tackles last year, 4.5 for loss, 1 sack, 3 interceptions, and 7 pass breakups. He is one of the best coverage linebackers on this roster. And in talking to people throughout the course of spring and even during the spring game, Vincent Ferenzi is a guy, and they call him Vince there. Vince Ferenzi has stepped in and created a serious impact on this defense early. I don't know if he'll play significant snaps or not, but what he's done in practice and throughout the course of the spring, it made an impression. It made a big impression, and I think that is something that should be noted throughout the course of time. I think he's jumped up this depth chart pretty significantly. I would say he's probably the 3rd or 4th linebacker on the depth chart right now. What will that look like when the fall rolls around? I don't know. Again, I'm not an insider. I don't have any insider information. I just know kind of what has been going on because I've been around the program, at least significantly, throughout the course of this spring. Going into the secondary, Deuce Blades comes in from FIU, and last year was really solid. Son of Brian Blades, of course, and was, again, just solid last year for FIU. 26 tackles, 1 interception. I'm excited to watch what he does on this defense, alongside Bernard Causey, who comes over from Georgia State. 6 PBUs last year, 2 tackles for loss, 1 sack. And then Devon Patterson last year, 80 tackles, 4 for loss, 9 PBUs. This is going to be, I think, a really solid secondary. Of course, you got Rashawn Tung, who comes back this year, Braylon Johnson. Those 2 guys are going to be interesting to watch, and there's some names behind them as well, but I think those are the big ones. Trayvon West, where he'll kind of fit in, I don't know quite yet, but I'm expecting him to get some significant playing time as well. There's a lot of pieces here. Even going into that safety room, Tung and Johnson there, but Miles Turpin played significantly last year, made an impact. Joshua Patterson comes over from Iowa State, and I think he has potential to make an impact. He's only a redshirt freshman, likely the 4th safety on the depth chart, but there is potential for him. I'm excited to watch how this all comes together. Again, there is a lot of time left, but I think this defense has a genuine shot to be maybe a top 25, and I'll go as far to say maybe a top 15 or 20 defense in college football. That's how good these guys can potentially be, and that's how experienced these guys are. There's a lot of excitement, I think, around this defense, and especially after last year with a lot of these guys coming back, there's good reason for it. Going into the schedule, we talked about this team being able to maybe outdo what they did last year in the regular season was 8-4, 4-4 in ACC play. You look at the schedule, and it is workable. And to be honest, I'm going to start right away. The win total is blasphemous. I think that it is entirely too low for what this team has potential to do. I mean, you're looking at non-conference, which I think they should be favored and win all 3 of those games. You look at the conference play, which starts on a Friday night against Miami, which is going to be a blackout game. It is going to be probably the best environment of the season at a Legacy Stadium. But you have that. You have Stanford at home, Virginia at home, Merrimack is homecoming, if I'm not mistaken, and then Duke to end the season. Those games being at home, winnable games at home, opens up potential. And I think obviously you're not going to be favored against Miami. But could they come out, if Miami gets to a slow start this season, could they come out and pull off a crazy upset? Yes, 100%, especially if this offense is able to get it together. I think the road trips, rightfully, are a little tougher. Purdue is going to be a pretty good kind of test early in the year to see how ready this Wake Forest team is going to be to go on the road. It's a tough environment. Ross-Ade Stadium is, for all intents and purposes, a pain in the ass to go play in. I'm kind of excited for it, as a matter of fact. Unfortunately, I'm scheduled to work that weekend, or I would probably be making a trip up there because I would love to see it. On the road against Louisville, on the road against NC State, at Cal to follow that NC State game, and then SMU and Georgia Tech, the two final road games of the season before that Duke one to end the year. The road games are a little tougher, but they're also winnable. I would say they're probably favored in 4 of the 6 that they'll play on the road this year. I think it's a pretty solid bet that this team has potential. I don't know that 5.5 is even remotely close to correct. I think this team probably should be sitting at 7.5 as the over under. I don't know. I don't know if it's just a doubt in Wake Forest because people don't know the names that are on this team. But it happened the same way last year. If I'm not mistaken, this team had a win total sitting at 3.5 last year. And they went out and absolutely blew that out of the water. I just think there's a reason to believe that this team does more. So let's go ahead and predict this thing game by game. It's going to start with that home game against Akron. It's a Thursday night kickoff. Very, very looking forward to just seeing what this team looks like in that game. I think it's going to be a really solid one. I think they'll come out, no questions asked, get the win. Going on the road to face Purdue, like I said, this is a tough environment, and Barry Odom is a really good head coach. But I buy into what this team is right now. I think that if we're talking about proven commodities, Wake Forest has more of them. They're going to go out, get a win on the road. It's going to be, I think, a really impressive win over Purdue. They'll come back and play Miami, which I think is going to be, again, I talked about it, it's a blackout game. That's the theme. They've already released it. And it's going to be a fun environment. A Friday night in Winston-Salem, what more can you ask for? It's going to be a close game. I don't think they're going to win. As a matter of fact, I will go ahead and throw it up there. It's a loss. But I think this is going to be a close game and one that has serious potential that we might be talking about an upset on Saturday morning. If you remember last year, obviously it's a different story because Florida State wasn't good. But when Florida State went up to Virginia on a Friday night early in the season, after beating Alabama early in the year, starting the season undefeated, go into that game and get beat by Virginia. Think about those types of feelings. Think about the Georgia Tech game last year. That's the kind of vibe I think I'm getting from what this could be. Now, I'm not saying they're going to be close or this game finishes within 2 touchdowns, but for a while, there might be some hope. You'll follow that up with a road trip to Louisville. I just think that Jeff Brom and this offense for Louisville is going to be a little tougher. I've gone back and forth on this game. I'm going with a loss. I think Louisville is going to get the job done. You come back home and play Stanford. Should be a very simple get in and get out win. You go on the road to face NC State. I think this is a really good opportunity to get a good rivalry win, and I think they'll do just that. Start 4-2 through the first 6. You come out of the first 6 and you go on the road to Cal. This is another game I've gone a little back and forth on. I think this Cal team is very solid. I love what the offense looks like. But it is a brand new head coach in Tosh Lupoy. What does that bring to the table for them, and how well is he capable of having this team ready to go this year? I think they have all the talent in the world, and I think they've done a great job in the portal. They're one of the few teams that I think have really worked well with the limitations that are in play for them. I think Cal has a shot here, but I'm taking Wake Forest to get it done. They'll come back home after a bye week, face Virginia. I think they'll get a win there. I think this Virginia team takes a little bit of a step back. They're not going to be bad. I just think there's a step backwards. You follow that up, homecoming against Merrimack. I think that's a surefire win. So you're walking here at 7-2 when you go on the road to face SMU in Dallas. Really good opportunity there for this team to maybe go out and pull off a huge upset. I'm not there yet. I think that this SMU team is really solid. They're probably right there with Miami in terms of who I think has a chance to win the conference. This SMU team, not going to be a team that I think Wake can go in and beat. Georgia Tech, I think this game is going to mean a lot. There's going to be a lot of memories of what happened last year, and I don't really think that they're going to want to go in and lose this one again. Georgia Tech has a lot of things that they've lost, and specifically the strength of Georgia Tech is really the strength of this Wake Forest defense, stopping the run. And without Buster Faulkner, what does this offense even look like? I don't know that it's going to be as good as it was last year. I think Wake Forest gets revenge and gets an upset win, or maybe not even an upset at this point, a big win to move to 8-3 going into the final game of the year against Duke, where they'll go into that game and get a win. I think this Duke team takes a step backwards this year. A 9-3, 6-3 record for Jake Dickert in year number 2, and I think there is a ceiling. And I think that this is a lofty ceiling. I think there's a ceiling of 10-2, and this Wake team being outside looking in for a playoff spot. And the reason I believe that is because they're probably going to lose their 2 toughest games. I think that I have firmly written in losses to Miami and SMU. But how good can Louisville be? How good will that road win be for them? How good will that road win over Cal look at the end of the year? How good will that road win over Georgia Tech look? And then what if Duke, NC State, or Virginia end up being an 8 or 9 win team themselves? Does Wake Forest then have a chance? Maybe. I don't think 9-3 is getting it done, though, and I don't think they're a playoff team. If we're talking about a floor, I think it's 7-5. I think this team is a bowl lock going into this year, and I think they are a heavy lock on that win total. Over 5.5, I'm hammering it. As a matter of fact, I've already got it. So, very exciting times in Winston-Salem. I think Jake Dickert's doing the most with what they have there, and there's a lot of there's a lot of concerns. And look, I'm not sitting here lying to you. I live near the program. I go to full transparency. I'm a season ticket holder for Wake Forest. I'm not blowing smoke here. This is what I honestly think of this team. But here's what I will tell you. With everything that happened to the baseball program over the course of this last month and a half, or month really, once the postseason began and once really the transfer portal opened up, they lost Bill Salento, lost a good amount of players that they really wanted to bring back. The Costello brothers, J.D. Stein, handful of others. There's been a lot of frustration around this program. There's been a lot of frustration after losing Juke Harris to Tennessee because they couldn't pay him. They couldn't pay him. And it's kind of been a similar story for a little while now for some of the biggest players. Micah Mays left. Wake Forest couldn't pay him. It's no secret this program, or this team as a whole, has a few issues surrounding them. I don't want to speak out of term, and I really don't want to be completely wrong because I don't know the full details, but there have been issues with NIL and specifically how it's being utilized within the program. And there's been a lot of calls for certain things to happen, and I'm not going to be one of those overreactionary people or fans, but there's certainly a lot of things that I think are and should be kind of watched closely over this time. But what I will say is Jake Dickert's put together a great staff. He's done a great job. I mean, year 1 blew expectations out of the water. And year 2, I think, is going to do the exact same thing. I don't think anybody's really ready to see this team go and win probably 9 games. I think it's certainly on the table for them. They don't face Pitt. They don't play, you get Miami, Louisville, SMU, but you don't play Pitt. You don't get, I'm trying to think of who might be behind that. You don't get Clemson. You don't get Florida State, who absolutely walked Wake Forest last year, which was one of the more surprising results of the year. You don't get some of the biggest programs and the heaviest hitting programs of this conference. It's lining up that it could be a really good year, and there should be reason for excitement here. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. I think this is a year that people can really get excited and kind of have something to be excited for in Winston-Salem with the way that things are going. Now, I'm not saying that the baseball program is going to stay where they are. The basketball program right now is kind of SOL at the moment, but football, I think, might be Wake Forest's thing for the next couple of years. So we'll see what things look like. I'm looking forward to it again, and I appreciate y'all tuning in. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Again, if you're new around here, leave a like, subscribe, comment down below. Let me know what you guys think, Wake Forest fans, fellow fans. Let me know down in the comments. Do you think I missed on anything? I'll always want to make sure that we acknowledge or inform the people about what Wake Forest is going to look like this year. Looking forward to previewing Cincinnati later today. That's going to be a really fun video as well. You can expect that around 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Going to be a fun one. Scott Satterfield probably fighting for his job this year, and what can that look like, and how well can they get things figured out? certainly something that's going to be up in the air and certainly in the conversation for that video later tonight. And then, of course, tomorrow we'll get a double upload again. UCLA and LSU will be the two tomorrow before we roll it back around on Monday with Louisville, as a matter of fact. So an opponent for this Wake Forest team. Excited to talk about Jeff Brom's squad as well. So appreciate y'all for tuning in. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And with all that said, we'll see you later today with another episode of Preview Season here on Armchair Analysis.